So, a long time ago, I believe it was um, 2018. I want to say it was 2018. So about 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? I think it was January of 2018. I took um, this personality test, and I thought it was really fascinating. And so I just kind of want to go through real quick. This is not my first time um, going through this, obviously, because I took it 2 years ago, and I'm not going to take it again. Some people did it like, I want to see what it's like now that it's been 2 years and test my personality again. They discourage you from doing that on the actual website, and I don't want to actually do that because um, I know how the test works now. So I feel like I would just be it would be like a biased test, and that kind of defeats the point. So some of these things actually surprised me. Most of it makes a lot of sense, but so basically it goes through like the big five. So um agreeableness, conscientiousness, extroversion, neuroticism, and openness to experience. And then this website splits each one into two categories. So for agreeableness, we got compassion and politeness. Um, it took me a little while to understand what politeness was. It doesn't just mean like being nice to people. It means um, like authority, right? So moderately polite people tend to be differential to authority, right? So I'm like 65% percentile, meaning that like if I'm in a group of 100 people, I'd be more polite than 65 of them and less than 34 of them. At least when it comes to like listening to my boss or like if there's rules to follow or whatever. I mostly follow the rules. Um, and then compassion, feeling empathy for people and understanding emotions and wanting people to be happy generally. 77th percentile. Um, Conscientiousness. this this one, oh man, this one hit me pretty hard when I first took this test. Eighth percentile. Eighth percentile conscientiousness. At first, I was like, "Whoa, that's really bad." It's not necessarily that it's bad. It's just like it's really low, especially when it says, you know, somewhere in here it says something about success is like people in the high end of conscientiousness are most likely to be successful in life. So the fact that I'm really at 8%, see now it says like people with very low levels of conscientiousness are very likely to obtain poor grades. If anybody knows me at all, they know that that's not true. Although it has been in the past. When I was in elementary school, middle school, and high school, my grades were pretty good. Um, but I realized kind of after taking this and after thinking about it for a long time, I finally came to the conclusion that like the reason I got good grades was because I always had my parents, mostly my mom, to make sure that I got it done. And like she was always like, do your homework, do your homework, do your homework. And I didn't learn that until I moved away to college. And then all of a sudden, I didn't have any parents on my butt. Um, and my grades started to slip. I would forget about stuff. I would forget about online quizzes, online tests. I would forget, we had to read certain chapters for certain books, and I would just wouldn't do it because I would just forget, put it off, and procrastinate. Um, but I got better. I got a couple bad grades, and then I was like, okay, I gotta fix this because this is not me. Um, but yeah, this was like really eye opening to me, and it wasn't surprising once I started thinking about it, because like this made me laugh. They're likely to regard those who slog away at their tasks as suckers, teachers' pets, and bootlickers. They'll only work hard if directly and continually pushed by outside forces. They can be creative at wasting time. They are very likely to procrastinate. Even if they do commit to something, it's very likely it'll be later delayed, even if there's no reason, right? So, formulate excuses for failure to deliver. Blaming the situation, not at all decisive or organized or reliable. So, obviously, it's general for people who fall under this low area. Obviously, everybody doesn't fall into all of these things, because I think I am pretty reliable, and I think that's mostly because of this agreeableness thing. When somebody wants me to do something, I do it because they asked me to do it. If I set a goal for myself and then don't land on it, I'm just like, well, it was just me, so it's not that big a deal. Nobody else was relying on me. I do consider myself pretty reliable. I have always free of guilt, shame, self-disgust, and self-contempt. Mostly, yeah. I'm not really bothered by failure. Yeah, unconcerned by failure. Not at all judgmental to themselves or others. And so, I think that that's a pretty good thing, but good at relaxing, taking it easy, living in the moment, right? Low in neuroticism. We'll get to that later because that's another area that didn't surprise me at all, but it was shockingly low. Industriousness, also low, kind of goes hand in hand. So these are the two categories of conscientiousness: industrious and orderly. Both of those things are pretty low. So not the lowest in the world, but still pretty low, 11th percentile. Less industrious than 88 out of 100 people. So, yeah, underachievers. I've been called that a lot. Put off responsibilities. Aren't concerned with schedules. Literally never made a schedule for myself in my life until I was 22. I was like, oh, let's take a look at this Google Classroom thing. And I planned out my week. I had never in my life even thought of planning out my week. I literally never crossed my mind that was even a thing people do. Orderliness. It's pretty self-explanatory. Where is it? Don't use schedules, lists of routines. See the world in shades of gray, not in black and white. Not disturbed, upset, or disgusted by the mess, or they just don't notice it, or if they do, they don't care. I say that's pretty true. I love the thing. Where is it? I thought it was in here. There's somewhere of something somewhere of it saying I can't find it. But it's people who are high in orderliness tend to have ironing boards in their immediate vicinity. Which I actually do now. I just bought one. It's right here next to me. So I'm getting better at that. And oh, I just saw it. Here we go. Iron. What? Event calendars, drawer organizers, laundry baskets, irons, and ironing boards. I have all of those things now in their immediate environments. Yes. It's right here in this room. Extroversion, high. This was the most surprising thing on here because my whole life growing up, I always considered myself an introvert. When everybody talked about introversion and extroversion, I knew I was an introvert, and I always considered myself to be pretty introverted. And then I took this test, and it said I was high in extroversion. This is, I think, the highest thing I'm on. Besides, it's one of the most extreme ones. Besides my orderliness and neuroticism being so low, this is one of the most extreme ones. And it shocked me. I was like, how am I extroverted? But when I kept reading it, it says extroversion is the primary dimension of positive emotion, general sensitivity to positive emotions, hope, joy, comparatively enthusiastic, talkative, and assertive in social situations. See, and that's where I always considered extroversion to be, which it is. In social situations, I'm not. I can be when I'm around my best friends. But if I'm just around a bunch of people, I tend to be pretty quiet and I just kind of like observe and take everything in. They take pleasure in planning parties. I don't really uh, plan that much. Telling jokes, making people laugh, and taking part in community activities. I do like doing that. I don't do it very often. Like when I'm just in a group of people. If I'm around like my best friends, then yes. Um, Positive emotions, high levels of current self-esteem. That's pretty much always been the case. I've never had low self-esteem. I've never really. I mean, everybody has their times where they look in the mirror and like, what are you doing with your life? Everybody has that, but I don't do that very often. Um, Optimistic about the future for sure. Yeah, so difficult time keeping things to themselves and tell everyone everything. Sometimes self-disclosing, uh, warm up quickly to other people. I would say I do warm up quickly to other people. Tend to speak first and most often. Definitely not me. Definitely not me. Can be captivating and convincing. That's something that I've worked on over the years. I wouldn't say I'm natural at that. Ever since I took that speech class in college, and ever since I've been working with kids and being a counselor and being like a teacher in schools and stuff, I've gotten a lot better at this. First to act sometimes, yeah. Yeah, so anyway, enthusiasm and assertiveness. This really like did it for me. It's like, okay, enthusiasm, yeah, definitely. They want to be around people for sure. Love parties, not so much, but around people, yeah, definitely. Laugh or giggle much more than average. I doing it right now. Um, don't keep people at a distance and keep little private. See, it depends. It depends on the person. Keeping people at a distance. Keep little private. I don't really care. Like most things in my life, like I don't mind sharing. I don't have anything to hide. Um, they like and sometimes crave stimulation, excitement, activity, and fun. Sometimes I haven't really had that much of a problem during this whole quarantine thing. So, like, yeah, I would like to go to anywhere exciting, but I can't, and whatever. I find other things to do at home. Uh, Assertiveness. This kind of surprised me. 73rd percent for assertiveness. I don't remember it being that high. 73. Uh, Take charge types put their own opinions forward. Sometimes likely to dominate and control social situations. I think this really works for me, like as a teacher, because it's good when they're knowledgeable, competent, and able, but less good when they aren't, right? Because if you don't know anything about something, you shouldn't be a leader in that thing. Less likely to wait for others to lead the way. Yeah, so this is the case, like specifically when there's a role that needs to be filled and nobody wants to do it, then it's like, okay, let me step in, like I joined student government simply because we didn't have any officers, and I was like, all right, like this is something that we need to do. Someone's got to step in, so I stepped in. Um, Sometimes they're impulsive, consequence, acting too quickly without thinking. I mean, sometimes, I mean, everybody, I feel like everybody sometimes will act without thinking. I don't make it a habit. It's not that common of me to do that a lot. Neuroticism, exceptionally low, second percentile. Lower in neuroticism than 97 out of 100 people. Basically, this is the primary dimension of negative emotion. Um, so I think this is a pretty good balance, 83rd percentile in enthusiasm, second percentile in neuroticism. So I think that makes sense. I'm generally pretty happy person, not very sad very often. Um, yeah, like I've never I didn't even know what this word meant until I took this test. I had never heard of this word. I only thing I knew was like neuro means, like neurons in your brain and stuff, but I didn't really know what neuroticism meant. But yeah, primary dimension of negative emotion. So if you're more susceptible to like anxiety and depression and things like that, then you would be on the upper end. But I'm not. I've never felt that in my life. I've never felt depressed. Definitely never had suicidal thoughts or tendencies. I don't really, I don't really know what it feels like to have anxiety, to just like when, because like people try to explain to me like they just feel anxious, and I'm like, why? There's nothing to be anxious about. And it's like I just am. I don't get that because my brain doesn't do that, and I feel really lucky that I don't experience that. Like people who experience that every day, they're like, man, it sucks. But I do know what anxiety is. Like I've definitely felt anxious before, specifically when like I get in arguments with people I care about important stuff. Like me and my brother argue about stupid shit all the time, and like there's nothing to get anxious about because we're just having a stupid debate about the best way to do an exercise or whatever. And that's stupid. But like when I was in college and in my political science class, and we started talking about um, certain subjects, political like opinions and all that, and then I'm in a group of like 8 people, and me and this one other person like are complete opposites, and we're trying to come to a consensus. And like it's just a simple, um, we're acting out building a society, and we have to decide, what we're gonna do about um, healthcare and education and on this and that. And I'm like, we should do this, and she's like, no, we need to do this. And I'm like, really, really disagreeing with her in front of everybody and getting really like I know that I'm in my head. I know that I'm right, and she like is completely on the other end of the spectrum. And so we're headbutting really hard in front of a bunch of people, and it's like kind of embarrassing, but I'm so set on my position that like I started getting angry. Literally, my hands were shaking like this. Like it was unbelievable. I had no control over my hands. My feet were shaking. Like my legs were so shaky. My voice was shaky. My face was red. Like it was. That's the worst I've ever felt. Like anxiety, just because I don't like confrontation. That's what agreeable people don't like confrontation, and I don't. And it was in front of a bunch of people, and it was embarrassing. But um, I was really passionate about what I was talking about, and she was just disagreeing with me so hard. But there's no bad blood. Like the day at the end of class, and I was like, "Look, it's all good. You know, I don't hate you. There's no bad blood." Anyway, withdrawal. Okay, so neuroticism is split into withdrawal and volatility. I had no idea what these words meant. Obviously, I've heard of withdrawal as far as like addictions and stuff, but basically, withdrawal means like you withdraw yourself from the situation because you're scared of what's going to happen in the future. Fourth percentile. I never worry about that. Um, Volatility. First percentile. You can actually go 0th percentile where you're the lowest. I'm 98 out of 100, so there's one person lower than me. But I'm trying to. Oh yeah, volatile meaning like emotionally volatile. How susceptible you are to just quick emotional changes. If you're like way up here, you can go from mad to sad to angry to happy. Pretty quickly. But first percentile, that's really low. That's shockingly low. Basically, extraordinarily stable and predictable in their moods. Almost never irritable. Rarely experience disappointment, frustration, pain, and loneliness. I've never really felt loneliness. Like I honestly, like, I've never really felt that. And I mean, again, like, I consider myself lucky to have never felt that, but it's also just how my brain works. Even if I am alone for so long, like, it doesn't bother me. I just find things to do. Um, Unusually infrequent occasions where they do become stirred up, upset, and angry or irritated, they calm down almost immediately. So, yeah, like, even if provoked in a dispute, a person of very low volatility will rarely react in kind. So, in other words, if somebody comes up to me flailing their arms and screaming, I pretty much just like stay calm and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You know, I don't yell back. Um, Such people remain calm and unperturbed even when extraordinarily stressed. Yes. Openness to experience. This I thought was really interesting too. 78th percent openness to experience basically means like um, things like, novelty art, literature, abstract thinking, philosophy, just anything outside of normal society, like responsibilities and stuff like that. Like, um, more likely than average to be characterized by others as smart, creative, exploratory, intelligent, and visionary. Highly interested in learning, uh, continually acquire new abilities and skills. I definitely agree with that. I always try to learn something new. They're very curious and exploratory, find themselves unusually interested in abstract thinking, philosophy, and the meaning of belief systems and ideologies. They will seek out cultural events, movies, concerts, dance recitals, plays, poetry readings, um, complex ideas, love to confront and solve complex and multidimensional problems. Prolific readers. I don't really consider myself a prolific reader. Strikingly wide range of interests, definitely. Broad and deep vocabulary, sometimes. I don't normally speak with a particularly um, robust vocabulary. Is that the right? I don't even know. Robust. Oops, if I could type robust. What does that even mean? Strong and healthy, vigorous, I guess. I don't normally talk with like a particularly hard to understand vocabulary, but I do like I can read and listen to a higher degree. That's something I learned. Most people will have a higher vocabulary listening than they do speaking. So like if someone's saying a bunch of smart words to you, you're more likely to understand them than you already use them yourself in your own speech. Radical thinkers shake things up, particularly if they are also disagreeable, which I'm not. So, somewhat more likely to be revolutionary rebels. Uh, Not really. I was never really very rebellious, but I think that goes back to being highly agreeable. So, or at least moderately high. Open, unconscientious people tend to be underachievers, particularly if also above average in neuroticism. I definitely have been an underachiever in my life. I'm not above average in neuroticism, though. Way below average. Um, so, but I guess that would be because, like, if you're high in neuroticism, you're worried about what you're doing is wrong, and like you don't do it because what if it's the wrong choice? I'm not like that. I never worry about. I shouldn't say never. I do worry about that, but it's not something that floods my mind every day. Intellect. Okay, well, let's get this clear. Intellect does not mean intelligence. It says right here, do not confuse the personality aspect of intellect with IQ, right? Intellect is a measure of interest in abstract ideas. Um, so, abstract concepts, wider vocabulary, like to learn new things, Um, less well suited to stable, straightforward, and more traditional occupations. So that is perfect. That describes me perfectly because I started off in accounting in college and I did not enjoy it. I was good at it. I hated it. And I was like, if okay, I thought to myself, what's gonna happen when I graduate? I'm gonna graduate, I'm gonna get a job, and then I'm gonna sit in an office and be on a computer all day, typing in numbers, handling the money of other businesses. That's boring. I'm just gonna sit in an office all day and type stuff into a computer. I Oh my god, that would suck. Rules don't rules don't change and are likely to experience frequent periods of boredom in such positions. That would be so boring. That's why I started in education, because education's always changing. Kids are always, you know, I was going to say kids are always changing, but that's not true. I don't believe that. The world's always changing. The environment that kids grow up in is always changing. So it seems like kids are changing because they're surrounded by computers, but they're no different than kids who grew up in the 80s, no different than kids who grew up in the 60s, the 1800s. It's kids are kids. They're just, the environment's different. The environment that they grow up in is different. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. Openness. Um, so openness to experience is the category. Openness is one of the sections, which sounds confusing. But I think it means just personal openness. The closest synonym for openness is creativity. Um, Openness to ideas, openness to basically if you're highly open, which I am, I just love to listen to anybody talk about everything. See everything, hear everything, experience everything I can, that kind of stuff. If you're low in openness, you just, you know, you do your job, you go home, if you have kids, you take care of your family, and that's your life. You know, if you're high in openness, you want to see the world and go hiking and see art and go to museums and like learn about everything you can, in addition to um, your normal daily responsibilities or whatever. So yeah, so that was a really quick, maybe not quick, but that was a quick look at this personality test, which I think is really fascinating. I thought this was so cool that I wrote a whole document about it. It's like 13 pages long. I mean, a lot of it is just me, like doing this and pasting it, and then doing this and then pasting it and then talking about it. So most of it is it's probably like a third quotes from here and then 2/3 my thoughts about them. So I have that on a USB, and I was going to go through that, but that would take forever. So I just decided to go through here. So that's pretty much who I am. And like I said, this was 2 years ago. So I've taken a lot of these things to heart. Like, this neuroticism thing really made me think. It changed the way I think about anxiety and neuroticism. Um, Enthusiasm. This extroversion changed the way I feel about introversion and extroversion, particularly with myself. Um, uh, this this was the most effective thing for me, because like I was like, okay, I got to get this together, because if I'm going to be a good teacher, I need to be organized, I need to be responsible, I need to not lose anything, I need to, you know if I say I'm going to do something, I need to do it. I need to not be late, I need to not procrastinate, and I really took that to heart, and I started doing it, and it's turned out for the better so far. um, and this disagreeableness thing, I it makes sense. Like, usually I'm the type of person where If somebody tells me something new, I'm like, that's okay, cool, that's interesting. And I tend to latch onto it. Whereas if I was disagreeable, I'd be more likely to say, I don't know about that. And then do more research and say, okay, maybe this is legit. I tend to see the class app full and be like, this person is saying really interesting things. I'm going to believe them. And then I do more research and then I say, okay, maybe not everything is as it sounds, you know. I usually tend to believe people until they give me a reason not to. Disagreeable people tend to not believe people until they give them a reason to say, okay, this is legit now. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this. But that was a quick look of my personality 2 years ago.